everyone, my name is Vina, aka Miss WOC Reader, and welcome back to my channel. And today I'm just talking about my Booktube anniversary and reflecting on my experience as both a booktuber and book blogger. So I do try to mention it, but I don't know if everybody knows I do run a book blog. I've been running it since 2019. It is called One of Color Read, or you see it as WOC Read. It is always linked below in all my videos. And for me, it's so interesting because that space is completely separate from the channel in some ways. So a lot of my readership there are actually other authors. I'm grateful because so many of them do boost me and share my reviews or share different posts, and I do get a lot of opportunities through that. Recently I was able to have this paid opportunity where I read and judged manuscripts for a fellowship, and that was something really cool because it's helping authors who are very early in their career. The winners were able to get a grant, and they're going to get all this support from authors already in the industry. And it was cool to kind of see where people are at and work, and even though everything was like anonymous, so we didn't know the names of anybody, there were some really cool ideas out there that I'm hoping they get the opportunity to publish. And I also do like more beta reading, but I connect with different authors on Twitter, and beta reading is good too because you can give authors your feedback of how their story is going in the manuscript stage, and then they can make changes accordingly, and it's just giving them raw and honest feedback that they're not going to get once the book is published. So that's been a fun and interesting time. I've been reading like so many different things, and when I get on Booktube, the space is like completely different because most of my viewers are just like regular readers like myself, and so many people who do follow me also do Booktube. Before, when I first came across Booktube a few years back, people were telling me join Booktube, follow Booktube, and I wasn't finding the people who were reading like I like to read. I like to read a lot of books by authors of color, particularly Black authors, and at the time I like a lot of the even like the Black like booktubers they were showing me were reading popular white books, because we know popular white books get all the views, and it's very interesting to like when you want to read only the popular books to get those views, but then it can become so unsatisfying. Like when I was reading popular books last year, it was like mostly popular books, and I hated it. Those were some of the worst books that I read, period, in the past 5 years. But a lot of people on Booktube were like hyping these books up like they were so amazing. And it's interesting because the books that I find that Booktube gravitates towards by Black authors are not necessarily the books that I enjoy. They oftentimes feature like racism and things that are like explaining racism to a white audience or navigating a very white space, and so the white gaze and the white audience ends up being centered, even though we're told that this book is for Black viewers or Black readers. It doesn't always feel like it's for a Black audience to me, and that's not something that I see a lot of people on Booktube even discuss. It's because, to be honest, like if you're a white reader, you're not really going to pick up on that. So that's something you really need to hear from Black readers, or and this can apply for like any book by a person of color, because I've listened to like some of my Indian reviewers friends talk about books that are supposed to be for them, but they're not reading for them. Especially like my Muslim friends, there's a lot of books out there that kind of put down Islam in a way, and they get very hyped up, but people who are outside of the culture wouldn't necessarily pick up on that. And I really appreciate the women of When Black Women Speak for not being afraid to have those conversations. Like, they talked about some of the books that Booktube loves that will get you the views on Booktube if you do a video about it, but Booktube is not having the conversations that some of the rest of us are having about those books and how that character moved throughout the book. And some of these opinions are unpopular, but they're very valid. So I've really enjoyed the conversations that those women have been having, because they are making content that really focuses on a Black audience in particular, and they're having these discussions that we want to discuss, but we don't always have the space for. And that's one thing I try to do with my space as well. I want to have the conversations that I don't always see, but that are on my mind and I want to talk about. And I've appreciated how people will come into the comments and will have great discussions, and they'll make points that I wasn't even thinking about that I really agree with. So that's been cool for me to do those discussion videos and have those conversations, because when we're talking about diversity, you need to examine the books beyond just the surface level of well, it had XYZ representation. Representation aside, what was the actual story about? How were the characters portrayed? Because I've read books that were hailed for their diversity, and it was just like the main character was a tool by which to teach other people about diversity, which is never a fun reading experience, because it just gets overwhelming when you read so many books like that back to back. And I'm seeing some really creative content on here from black booktubers. I'm seeing Black booktubers talk about books that are not on people's radars at all, that are great books. And like, sometimes they're just books from lesser known publishers, sometimes they're books from big 5 publishers, but they're not getting that big push, so people aren't really discussing them. And I think too, when you're talking about diverse books, a lot of people, their goal is to definitely read diverse, and I think they're accomplishing that, but they're not always then giving the people of those actual communities the attention that they deserve, and amplifying their voices is necessary. Because I always find it interesting, Booktube does so many different diverse readathons, but then when things happen within those communities and all those people in the communities are asking for is you to boost their voices and share information, there's a million excuses of why people don't need to. I'm not saying you have to share every single time you do something, but sometimes you can amplify the voice of others. Like, that's much better than just sharing a book, because sharing a fictional book is one thing, sharing what's actually going on with their lives is a complete different thing. And like I said, I've been doing both the blogger side and the Booktube side, and it's been challenging to kind of find that balance between what content I'm going to make for each platform. And sometimes I'll hold stuff that I would have normally done on the blog because I want to do it for Booktube, or like my blog is very review heavy because reviews do really well on blogs. People are looking for that type of content. If I did a lot of reviews on here, people like don't respond to them as much because they haven't read the books yet, and they're not necessarily looking for the reviews until after they read the books. And those review videos kind of sometimes do well over time depending on what the book is, but I read a lot of books that are less popular. So the most popular book that I've read recently was Book of Night, and of course that's by a popular white author that got so many more views than any of my other videos published around the same time. But it's like not even a video like I'm greatly proud of, because I've done so many great videos that deserve more attention. So I definitely see where people get discouraged to continue with Booktube, because you're like, I'm putting out all this great content, and then like the stuff that gets the most views sometimes can be so basic. But then you have incidents where I did a video last year, for example, on Black love, and I talked about it specifically in books, but I guess because of other stuff trending around that time, it kind of went outside of Booktube, and that got so many views and became my highest rated video that I will never be able to top. And it had great feedback on Twitter, it had great feedback on here. It really opened the floor for a lot more discussion, and some people definitely watched and missed the whole point entirely of what I was saying, because they were just worried about doing like getting in their recs, or they were like nodding and agreeing, but you could tell they really didn't understand. So it's been interesting. But as far as my space on here, I'm not trying to explain things to people who are not Black. I really want to make this a safe space for Black readers to come and find recommendations for readers in general. And I just want to have these deeper discussions about the books I'm reading, beyond just like, this was diverse, it told me this, that's great. I like to examine these books and see, well, did I really get to know the character? Because sometimes I'll leave a book and I know nothing about the character beyond the basics. And it's interesting because prior to Booktube, I was doing more writing, and I'm just getting back into writing now again. So there are a lot of people on here who are also writers, and they look at books from the writer's lens, where you're examining the craft a little bit closer and seeing how they use words. So I've learned a lot from that. And overall, Booktube is just like any other community. So you have your fake people, you have those disagreements, you might not get along with people you initially wanted to get along with, but I think everybody has their own space on here. And I've had a great time so far. I've met so many amazing people, too many to list, but they know who they are, and I'm looking forward to more. So I'm hoping you guys stick around with me for my Booktube journey, however long it is. Thanks so much for watching and always showing me support, and I will check in with you guys soon. Bye.